One thing I can get a lot of people to agree with me on is that we all hate meetings, especially unnecessary meetings. But there are that kind of thing you call the necessary evil. So if your business or organization has remote workers in time zones apart from yours, and you struggle to conduct effective meetings as a result of this, I've seen a lot of backlash against remote work, and I know a lot of it is because of things like this. Then this episode should give you a pathway out of that struggle. Welcome to the Tech Your Business podcast, where we break down technology so you can use it however you want to help your business make more money, help your business be more effective. I'm Peter Banigo. I'm the founder and the chief consultant at Target ICT Ltd, a fully remote business and IT consulting firm. And this episode is inspired by the experience I've gathered from February 2012. February 2012 was the month where I hired my first remote member of staff, 7,000 kilometers away from me and four or five time zones away from me. So my experiences from then till today, February 2024, which is 12 years later. At the end of this episode, you would learn a lot of tips, methods, and tools that would help you hold effective meetings across time zones. So let's get straight to it. I talked about hiring my first remote worker 12 years ago. So basically what happened was I needed a packaging designer there was a bread brand that had to rebrand. So part of the rebranding project was packaging design. I needed a packaging designer and I couldn't get anyone locally. So I had to go online and I hired someone, Wasif. He's still my friend till now. So Wasif, he was from Pakistan. He was from Pakistan and he did the job so well. But the thing is that when you do something new like that, 5 times once a week, that was something I wasn't really used to. The first challenge that I met was that the time zones. Because the thing went like this. Sometimes I want to maybe have a meeting, and it wasn't even a bad time zone because just 4 or 5 hours away is not too bad. So sometimes we would want to have a meeting and he's already in the evening, or I'm already in the evening, or it's just everything is just all over the place. So we had this challenge of finding convenient times to collaborate and to meet, figuring out how to work together real time and give instant feedback was a mess. And up to that point, like I said, I'd only had experience working with others in my same time zone. So it was a totally new thing. So when I see CEOs who have spent decades lash out against this new thing of remote work, I totally understand. Because I just spent a few years, but they have spent probably someone's lifetime doing that. So to make this work, we definitely had to have meetings. We definitely have to have meetings with your remote staff. So I'll talk about these remote meetings, which is the title, the topic of this episode, under 2 categories. The first is the synchronous category. So I know I promise we don't use jargon, we don't use big words in Target ICT on this podcast. So synchronous is when that's the meetings we all are used to. When you have a meeting on Zoom, you have a meeting physically and everyone, or Microsoft Teams or whatever, and everyone is in the room, you schedule this particular time, everyone is available, present at that time for the meeting. Then the second category I'll I'll touch a bit more on that because you might have done it if you've managed remote teams a long enough, but I'll talk about it more because I had a situation where I had to introduce it to a group I was in because they kept trying to have meetings at night and I'm a morning person, so it couldn't work. So the second one is the asynchronous meeting. So asynchronous is just the opposite of the synchronous, which is where everyone will be present, but the meeting will be held, decisions will be made, and a conclusion will be drawn. So let's start with the first category, which is the synchronous meetings, and which is the more popular, more accepted. When you mention a meeting, that's what you see. So I mentioned earlier that across remote teams, the first challenge in having synchronous meetings is the difference in the time zones. So one thing that has worked for me, for my business in dealing with these time zones is maintaining a shared calendar. So I use Google products, but Outlook has a calendar, Apple has a calendar, there are so many other popular calendar projects. So for me, I have a personal calendar for my personal things, and I have a company calendar for my business engagements. But I can see my business calendar in my personal account, and that's what we do for other team members too. So if we've blocked out something for something personal, it doesn't clash with anything work. So we are able to block off times we have for self and block off times we have for work. So that way, if you look in someone's calendar, you can see, okay, this person is only free at this time. So it's this applies to everyone on the team, and it's really necessary because in case you want to have a one-on-one chat with someone, like I said, you can always just take a peek into the calendar and confirm, oh, this person is free before you say, okay, can we have a chat by this time? It just reduces the back and forth a lot. So one of the biggest, apart from that, one of the one-on-ones I just talked about, when you want to have a meeting with maybe 3 or more people, one of the biggest challenges I've experienced is choosing the best time to meet. Okay, for instance, it's about a few minutes after 10 a.m. right now when I'm recording this. I usually like doing my things in the morning before noon. I think the sun messes up my brain a bit. But it's okay, let's say it's 10 a.m. here, but currently in Houston, Texas, that's in the USA, it's 4 a.m. In Sydney, Australia, it's 9 p.m. same day. And in Los Angeles, USA also, it's 2 a.m. So if I have team members in those 3 places and I want to have a meeting, a synchronous meeting with them, I'm the only one that's awake during working hours. It's 2 a.m., it's 4 a.m., it's 9 p.m. Those people will be with their families or they'll be sleeping. So it won't be right to schedule a meeting with them at this time, which is convenient to me. So there is another, organizing a masterclass on structuring your business for increased efficiency this February 2024. And it's part of what inspired this episode, choosing a convenient time where everybody would be, or at least almost as many people as possible will be carried along. So when I was trying to decide on a time for the meeting, I went to 7 p.m. my time. I know it's like maybe 3 hours outside my work hours, but when I looked at it, 7 p.m. my time would be 11 a.m. in California, Los Angeles, 2 p.m. in Miami, and 6 a.m. the next day in Sydney, that's Australia. So at 7 p.m. my time, at least a lot of people would be able to join in from the east and west parts of the world. So to find convenient times, to make it easy to find convenient times, one of the tools, it's free, by the way, that I love using to find these convenient times is World Time Body. So that's worldtimebody.com. So it's free, like I said. What you have to do is just go on the website, enter your time zone, enter the time zones of the people you would have the meetings with, and then it's going to give you a table. So when you select each time, it shows you what that time is for everybody else. So it just makes it so It just makes it so easy. So you can say, okay, if I have a meeting by this time, it's going to be this time, this time, this time for these people. Okay, let's choose this if it will be better. So you can maybe choose 3 or 4 slots and then give it to your people. Okay, what time would you prefer? So at least before you give them those slots for the meeting, you're already convinced that they are convenient times for them. Another tool that has a function like that that's also free is timeanddate.com. That's timeanddate.com. So it has a meeting planner there. So if you can't access the other websites I talked about, you can do it on timeanddate.com. So if you have a situation, a unique situation like mine, where you deal with clients and team members from Sydney to the US West Coast, it's advisable from experience to keep meetings short and straight to the point. That's one issue I have. At times, some meetings are not well planned, so they just keep going on and on. And let's say you met someone an hour before or 30 minutes before their closing time, and then you want to have a 3 or 4 hours meeting. You're taking out their personal time. You're taking time out from their day, which doesn't really work because it will end up meaning you have to have them present, meeting with you outside working hours when they should be doing non-work or normal things. So these are my points for synchronous meetings, and these are the meetings that we're used to. So let's move on to what I'm sure a lot of you have been waiting for. I talked about unproductive meetings earlier, and the average person spends 31 hours monthly in unproductive meetings, according to Atlassian. Asynchronous meetings solve this problem of unproductive meetings. You know, asynchronous, it might sound like a big deal, or it might sound like jargon, like I said earlier, but you might actually already be having asynchronous meetings in your company if you've managed people remotely long enough. An example to describe this best, because I know examples work better for things like this. Okay, let me say a typical meeting, it's typically synchronous meeting I would have. Let's say I publish a document, a collaborative like Google Docs documents, where everyone can edit and add their thoughts. On this document, I outline an agenda, I write down a goal, I write down decisions to be made, I write down action steps, and I also give a deadline for every concerned team member to put in their inputs, give them roles for the meeting, and then I email the link to this doc to my team and tell them, okay, in the next 24 hours, in the next 48 hours, please contribute to this document so we can arrive at a decision. So once everyone contributes, you have your meeting minutes. It's that simple. So you don't need to have a meeting and then start compiling meeting minutes later. You just have that Google Doc. Everyone puts their points, makes their decisions, gives their inputs, and that document has everyone's input. And you already have your meeting minutes. You have a meeting already conducted with input from everyone and without the nightmares of scheduling or interrupting someone else's day or your day to have the meeting. So that's what I just described was a successfully conducted asynchronous meeting. Most of my internal meetings with my team members are organized this way because I see meetings as disruptive, and this solves a lot of the problems that synchronous meetings come with. First of all, the scheduling nightmare vanishes because you're giving them instead of giving them an exact time to meet, you're giving them a time frame to contribute. You're also forced to prepare better for the meeting. Because like I said, makes for more effective meetings because you're forced to write down a clear agenda. You're forced to write down action points for this to work. So an advantage of this is that team members can contribute to this meeting when they are less busy. When, okay, I mentioned that I'm a morning person earlier. So for an evening meeting, I might not be really at my best, but in a morning meeting out, I can contribute my best. So I might, if I get a good up like this in the evening, I'll probably wait till it's morning and my brain is fresh and I'm at all my neurons, everything is firing, and I give my best to that contribution. Then everyone too also has time to really digest the topics before they contribute, which allows for better quality contributions. So let's put it like this. A lot of people are not really good at thinking on their feet, are not really good at, a lot of people make decisions better when they've had time to either sleep over the data or really sit down and digest the data. So this helps in that for those kind of people. Then also, I typically get more contributions in asynchronous meetings than in normal meetings because it's easy for the more quiet, the more introverted people to hide behind the more vocal team members in a normal meeting. But with this now, we have your name there with a space for you to make a contribution. So you make a contribution. But like with everything, like I said, there are some bad sides to the asynchronous meetings, which is why I practice and I recommend a mix of synchronous and asynchronous meetings. The first is that having face-to-face meetings, both physically and on tools like Zoom, having face-to-face meetings is great for team bonding because you can see the expressions on everyone's face. You can have jokes, you can banter and everything, and that's missing in asynchronous meetings. Another thing is asynchronous meetings don't work in emergency situations. So let's say we need to make a decision in the next hour or before the end of the day. You can't start doing that. You need to have a meeting and have the decision made before that emergency deadline. Then at times too, like I think this goes with the first point, bouncing ideas off each other live, because sometimes you might contribute on an asynchronous meeting, it might look like a good idea to you, but if you bounce it off live, do the back and forth in a live meeting, you have that opportunity to refine your idea and make it better than it would have been if you just dropped it and forgot about it. So most modern companies, me included, we use tools like Slack for communication and all that. And in those situations where, you're on Slack or you're on one of these chats, maybe chat rooms, work chat rooms, and someone drops an opinion and asks people to give feedback or people start giving feedback, that's also is already an asynchronous meeting happening because it's not something where you just stay and you have to maybe have a 1 hour, 30 minutes or whatever meeting. No, you dropped what you dropped and people would give their input and that's it. But today's topic is on asynchronous meeting, is on effective meetings. And we've talked about having effective synchronous meetings. So how do we conduct effective asynchronous meetings? There are some points, there are some steps. I think I've mentioned some of them before. The first one would be set a meeting purpose and goals. This applies to both synchronous and asynchronous, by the way. Set a meeting purpose and goals before you call a meeting. So what is the purpose of this meeting? What do we have to achieve at the end of this meeting? What are the goals we have to achieve by the time the deadline for this meeting is met? That needs to be set. Secondly, create a clear agenda. So you should have a clear agenda for the meeting. just like the first point too. Then also choose your platform. Like I mentioned before, my favorite platform is using just a Google Doc, uploading the Google Doc and asking for inputs. Some people might use Slack, like I just mentioned, dropping something and getting feedback from others. But like I said, having a deadline would work there better. I've seen situations where people use tools like Loom to make a video. For those who don't really like text, they can make a video and invite feedback. That can also be used for asynchronous meetings. Notion, the everybody's database. Notion is also another tool that can be used for asynchronous meetings. So you put in you can use it like Google Doc. You put in your everything and people contribute and good to go. So once you've chosen your platform, I've mentioned this a few minutes ago, there should be a time frame and a deadline for this to work. You can't put up a meeting and expect people to keep replying a week later, 2 weeks later, a month later. No, that's not going to work. So you should have a time frame. I prefer using 24 or 48 hours, between 24 and 48 hours, depending on how urgent it is and the notice for the meeting. If it's maybe like a weekly stand-up, we usually have review meetings. If it's something like that, then yes, 24 hours. But if it's something else, we can do 36, we can do 48 hours for the feedback, before which the form is shut down for any more edits. Then another way to have effective asynchronous meetings is assigning roles to your different team members. So you should have, when you assign roles to the team members, you're able to encourage them to participate fully in the meeting. So you can have someone that's in charge of taking notes, just different things, or just gathering all the thoughts, different things. Then also make sure you encourage collaboration. Make sure you encourage everyone on the team to respond. Let no space be left blank. So you have a variety. You have variety in your contributions. Then at the end of the meeting, make sure, don't just dump the Google Doc, because I've been in situations where I contributed to meetings and the person who called the meeting didn't go through the contribution. I won't contribute to that meeting again because it's a waste of my time. So when you're done, when you call a meeting, when you're done with it, make sure you summarize the key points, summarize the decisions, make up action items that are going to be carried out and when they're going to be carried out, and send this to the people that participated in the meeting so that they know that they didn't just waste their time, they made contributions, and those contributions they made are valid. So follow up and take action so that next time they are excited to contribute in the meeting. Then, like I always say, measurements, evaluate how effective these asynchronous meetings you have been organizing are. Look for where there are lapses and find ways to improve on that. So I've been talking for a while, but I would say that this so far sufficiently answered how you can effectively organize synchronous and asynchronous meetings across time zones for your remote teams, for your clients, because something like world time zone is something is for clients. So it works both ways for your teams and your clients. So apart from all I've mentioned, some other tips I would also like to drop are you should record meetings, which I mentioned before. That's summarizing your everything. So for the synchronous meetings, depending on the data protection laws, where you come from or where you stay, record the meetings, share meeting notes. There are AI tools for the synchronous meetings. There are AI tools that write meeting minutes. So you can use those depending, like I said, on data protection laws. Record the meetings, record meeting minutes, and share this with those who couldn't join live, share this with those who joined live, because a lot of times you join meetings and with the whole pressure, you might not really have caught some things. It's when you maybe listen to the replay, you catch those things. Then for synchronous meetings, also test your tools and your connectivity in advance before the meetings. Because I've attended a couple of meetings where it's when the meeting is started that you're testing, oh, my sound isn't working, my video, my camera, it doesn't really show respect for the other person's time. Then, like I mentioned first, be sensitive to late nights and early morning challenges. That's the time zones I mentioned at the start. So hope you might learn something new from this episode. For an effective meeting, I've said this a couple of times, remember that a clear agenda, clear goals, a clear purpose is a must, so you don't waste time. So try mixing up synchronous meetings and asynchronous meetings, depending on the matter to be decided on. And please, for my sake and for the sake of everyone else who feels the same way I do, avoid unnecessary meetings. So if you'd like the Google Doc templates we use for meetings at Target ICT Ltd, you can send a message and I'll send that right across to you. And also feel free to share, maybe through email, in the comment section, wherever you are, or any way you prefer. Share what has worked for you in managing meetings across time zones, managing meetings with your remote team, and so on and so forth. So did you get any value from this? If you did, please share it with everyone, not anyone, with everyone that it would help with organizing their meetings, who have remote teams, who have gotten tired of managing remote teams and are looking for a better way to have effective meetings with their team members, who maybe work remotely like me and have clients from all over the world and have challenges scheduling meetings with them. Share it with them so it can help them too. And if you want to be the first person to know when we post more helpful content like this, don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you're listening to or watching it on right now. So for more on this topic of remote work, on episode 6, that was about one of the first few episodes of the podcast, we talked about mastering remote leadership. And for business owners, business leaders, people who need to manage remote teams, I believe that episode would really complement this episode. So till next time, till when next you listen, next you hear my voice, bye for now and keep checking your business.